While you're watching this video, 5 Chinese research vessels are conducting operations in American Arctic waters right now. That's more ships than the U.S. Coast Guard has operational icebreakers. This isn't just about maritime presence. It's about America potentially losing control of its own backyard to a country that has no Arctic territory whatsoever. Today, we're diving into how China is systematically moving into the Arctic while the United States struggles with crumbling Cold War infrastructure and a strategic blind spot that could reshape global power dynamics for decades to come. The numbers tell a stark story that most Americans haven't heard. China has deployed more research vessels in U.S. Arctic waters in 2025 than ever before, marking what Coast Guard officials describe as a 3-year trend of unprecedented Chinese activity in the region. These aren't casual scientific missions. The vessels include advanced icebreakers like the Shuilong 2, equipped with polar drilling rigs and sophisticated research equipment that can gather both environmental data and strategic intelligence about America's most vulnerable frontier. What makes this particularly concerning is the dual-use nature of these operations. While Beijing frames these missions as scientific research, Pentagon assessments highlight China's dual civil-military efforts in the Arctic, noting that the lack of transparency in Chinese operations, combined with the country's increasingly assertive global posture, creates significant security implications for the United States. These research vessels are essentially mapping American Arctic waters with capabilities that far exceed what the U.S. currently maintains in the region. The infrastructure gap is staggering. America operates only 2 functional polar icebreakers, while China has been rapidly expanding its Arctic-capable fleet. But this disparity goes much deeper than just ships. Most U.S. Arctic military infrastructure dates back to the Cold War era and is now facing serious degradation due to permafrost thaw and coastal erosion accelerated by climate change. A recent Pentagon assessment revealed that U.S. and subarctic military bases are fundamentally unprepared for the impacts of climate change, with critical infrastructure facing mounting challenges that directly affect operational readiness. Military experts argue that the United States currently lacks the capability to sustain forces effectively in the Arctic, citing insufficient infrastructure, outdated institutional knowledge, and limited operational experience in the harsh Arctic environment. The military's own assessments acknowledge that failing to address these capability deficits could result in what they call a perception of a security vacuum that rival powers like China and Russia are actively working to exploit. China's Arctic strategy isn't random or opportunistic. It's part of a comprehensive plan called the Polar Silk Road, which is the Arctic extension of China's massive Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2018. Despite having no Arctic territory, China has cleverly positioned itself as a near-Arctic state and leveraged its observer status in the Arctic Council to advance strategic objectives that directly challenge American interests in the region. The Polar Silk Road encompasses shipping route development, resource extraction partnerships, and infrastructure investments that collectively challenge Western dominance in one of the world's most resource-rich regions. China's approach is methodical and long-term, focusing on building capabilities and relationships that will provide strategic advantages as Arctic ice continues to melt and make the region more accessible for commercial and military activities. This Chinese expansion has been significantly accelerated by Russia's growing isolation following its invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The traditional framework of Arctic cooperation has fundamentally collapsed, with the Arctic Council suspending most activities involving Russia. This breakdown has created what experts describe as a NATO 7 versus Russia dynamic. But more importantly for this discussion, it has opened unprecedented opportunities for China to partner with Russia in Arctic ventures that were previously off-limits to non-Arctic states. The economic implications are massive and often underestimated by American policymakers. The Northern Sea Route, which runs along Russia's Arctic coast, offers a 40% reduction in shipping distance between Asia and Europe compared to traditional routes through the Suez Canal.
Economic analyses suggest this route could handle up to 46 million TEU of cargo traffic between Asia and Europe when fully operational. For context, that represents a significant portion of current global container traffic, and China is positioning itself to benefit directly from this shift in global trade patterns.
But the stakes go beyond shipping routes. The Arctic contains an estimated 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas reserves and 13% of undiscovered oil reserves. China's strategic investments in Arctic energy projects, particularly through partnerships with Russia, position Beijing to benefit from these resources while reducing dependence on traditional shipping choke points that the United States and its allies currently control. The resource competition extends to critical minerals, with Greenland emerging as a particular battleground. Greenland possesses some of the world's largest rare earth mineral deposits, with projects potentially producing 500,000 metric tons annually of materials essential for high-tech industries, electric vehicles, and defense systems. The United States has been actively lobbying against Chinese involvement in Greenland's mining sector, with American and Danish officials pressuring mining companies not to sell projects to Beijing-linked firms. However, Greenland's government has made it clear they're willing to work with China if Western partners fail to provide adequate investment. This creates a strategic dilemma for the United States, as failure to invest substantially in Greenlandic mineral development could result in Chinese control over critical Western mineral supplies, further consolidating Beijing's already dominant position in rare earth production, where China currently controls approximately 70% of global output. The military dimensions of this competition are equally concerning. Recent intelligence indicates the first joint Russian-Chinese bomber patrol in the Arctic in July 2024, which NORAD intercepted near Alaska. This military cooperation signals a new phase of Arctic security challenges that the United States is not adequately prepared to address with current capabilities and infrastructure. Climate change projections make this situation even more urgent. Scientists estimate the Arctic may experience ice-free summers by 2030, dramatically increasing accessibility and commercial viability of Arctic routes and resources. This timeline creates significant pressure for the United States to address infrastructure gaps and capability deficits before rival powers establish irreversible advantages in the region.
The collapse of Arctic cooperation frameworks has also eliminated access to over 60% of Arctic research territories, hampering climate monitoring and environmental assessment capabilities that are crucial for understanding changes affecting military operations, infrastructure planning, and strategic decision-making. The loss of these cooperative mechanisms also removes important tools for managing potential conflicts and preventing miscalculations in an increasingly militarized region. What makes this particularly challenging for American strategy is that traditional Arctic cooperation had been one of the few areas where East-West relations remained functional even during periods of broader tension. The end of Arctic exceptionalism means the region is now fully integrated into broader geopolitical competition, with all the risks and complexities that entails. The trajectory suggests this competition will only intensify. China's growing Arctic capabilities, demonstrated by expanding icebreaker fleets and research vessel deployments, indicate a long-term strategic commitment to Arctic presence that goes far beyond current activities. The construction of additional Chinese icebreakers could enable permanent Arctic operations within the next decade, fundamentally altering the regional balance of power. For the United States, the strategic stakes extend beyond regional influence to global trade patterns, critical mineral supplies, and military positioning that could reshape international power balances. Control over Arctic shipping routes, resource extraction rights, and strategic positions represents a potential shift in global economic and security relationships that American policymakers are only beginning to fully understand. The challenge facing the United States is rebuilding Arctic capabilities while managing multiple global commitments and competing domestic priorities. This requires not just infrastructure investment, but also developing new institutional knowledge, operational capabilities, and strategic partnerships that can effectively compete with China's systematic approach to Arctic expansion. The question isn't whether America can afford to invest heavily in Arctic capabilities.
The question is whether America can afford not to, given what's at stake. As Chinese vessels continue operations in American Arctic waters and Beijing deepens its partnership with Russia, the window for maintaining American influence in this critical region may be closing faster than most policymakers realize.
What do you think the United States should prioritize first in addressing these Arctic challenges? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's discuss how America can respond to this strategic shift that could define global power dynamics for the next generation.